Hello, this video is in our Great Engine Game series, and today we are going to have a look at Leela-0 against DefenceChess from the TCEC Swiss 2. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler. So this is a beautiful strategical game from Leela, based on a piece of non-standard evaluation and planning that I think 99.9% of strong players just wouldn't think of. So, become part of the 0.1% and learn how to apply this deep strategy in your own games by watching this video. So the game started 1d4, Leela is white, DefenceChess is black, knight f6, knight f3, e6, c4, b6, g3, a standard g3 Queen's Indian. And then this move, knight a6, which was popularized by Queen's Indian expert Sergei Tivyakov. And knight a6 is flexible. Black's delaying committing any of his central pawns, so all structure still possible. But also a little bit risky, because the knight on a6 has got no follow-up really at the moment. It can't get to the c5 square in particular. So bishop f4, d6 was the last move of the TCEC book, and this d6 move is an additional strategical risk. Normally in this position, black will play the move knight e4, looking to relieve its slightly cramped position by exchanging off pieces, and also weakening white's control of the e4 and d5 squares. And that's important, because obviously if white gets in e4, d5, then white's got complete control of the centre and a very big space advantage, both on the queen's side and also on the king's side. d6 has been played by Tivyakov a couple of times, more often when I think he was playing for a win against a weaker opponent. Although, he also transposed to position from that line against strong opponents as well. It's a very risky move in general. So in this position, Leela played d5. That was the first move out of book, and this is a very aggressive and very ambitious move. Playing d5, blocking in the light squared bishop, and preparing to play e2 to e4. Now, I've always a little bit suspicious of these early d5s, simply because it allows the knight on a6 to come into c5. But I suppose the real follow-up question to that is, what is the knight able to achieve once it's come to c5? And maybe the answer is not that much. I think that Leela asks that crucial question and finds a pretty good answer. So DefenceChess had to find a move here, and it played knight c5, and we'll see how that turned out. There are a number of other alternatives. What you see now with Leela and Stockfish, I ran a lot of engine games between Stockfish and Koi 7.0, and also between Stockfish and Leela. And Koi Visto is a very strong engine. Don't get me wrong about that, but you did really see a big difference in the approach that Stockfish and Leela took when they were black, and Koi Visto. Koi Visto's approach was very similar to DefenceChess, but Leela and Stockfish, I think, were already understanding that strategically this was a very risky position, and they were really struggling with all their might already to create counterplay. And Leela's choice was to play e5, bishop e3, and c6, aiming for this somewhat ugly static structure, but one that Leela felt at least was not enormously cramped, and Leela managed to hold a number of these positions against Stockfish. Even though objectively they're not that pleasant for black. With weak light squares and a backward pawn on d6. Stockfish played the very interesting e5, bishop e3, and then queen e8. Just a sort of a useful move, waiting to see how white commits itself. So, for example, after queen c2, then Stockfish played knight g4, bishop d2, and f5. h3, knight h6. Happy to accept those double pawns, but in order to get some counterplay going on the king side. And I found this very, very striking. Simply, that at this early stage, both Stockfish and Leela were really, doing their utmost to get some play, to get some space in their positions, because they were obviously fearing what would happen after DefenceChess's move. The other possibility in the position after 9d5, that's Tivyakov's c5. He played this twice against Ivanchuk, where he lost, and also against John Tisdall, where he drew. But it was really pretty difficult. And my engines are straight away on plus 1.5 after that position, and playing e4, knight c7, rook e1, and I can just show you one game of Stockfish against Komodo this time. So e5, bishop e3, bishop c8, h3, knight c8, queen e2, bishop d7, and then a3, rook b1, b4, knight fh5, bishop h6. Just this lovely combination of play on both sides. Queen c8, king h2, f5 from Komodo, takes, ef, gf, knight b5, and here the tactics really started. I'll just show you the game quickly. No particular analysis of it, but just you wonder at all the tactics that are happening. The knight hanging, but the queen being lined up. E takes f3, bishop f3 will attack the knight on h5. So f4, knight e6. It's just absolutely gorgeous. This. Knight takes f4, takes, knight d2, and knight takes e4. And again, this is quite unpleasant for black. Black's a pawn up, but piece is somewhat offside. King is a little bit weak, but so is black's king. And after a move like queen b2, we're hitting b6. We've got rook g1 as a possible idea. White is somewhat better here, and Stockfish managed to put it away. I ran lots of games like that, lots of interesting, instructive games, but essentially White did seem to be clearly better. And, engines nowadays, they play these positions superbly. So, d6, d5, knight c5, played by DefenceChess. And now the idea, Black's idea really is to play a5 and establish the knight on c5. So White plays b4, knight c4, takes. And, this was essentially what I'd think intuitively is, really this move d5, I've allowed black to swap off this offside knight and bring it into the centre. But what Leela's seen simply is that okay, you've managed to do that, but are you really going to manage to establish yourself in the centre? And it doesn't quite look like it. Not after Leela's next move. That's quite interesting as well. There are more possibilities than just queen c2, which I think shows how risky the black position is. Takes was tried by both Stockfish and Leela in a few of my engine games. Queen d7, bishop h3, rook f6, f3, and looks very, very dangerous, but black's got this counter with c5 and queen c6. And black's structure is quite weak, but the extra pawn is a double pawn. Nice line up there. Both Leela and Stockfish thought that White was somewhat better, quite clearly better, but they didn't manage to make a win of it. The black side always held. And, this looks, compare it to the game and you'll see how much fun black is having. Queen c2 was Leela's move. And, it's a pawn sacrifice, one that's very risky to take. If you take off on d5, knight d4, knight f6, e4, rook d1, e5, knight d5, b5, queen f5, rook d8, takes knight c6. I can tell you I would have lost this way before this happened. The tactics were actually quite intricate. Leela managed to just about hold itself standing, playing black against Stockfish. But it is very unpleasant. But it might well be the best move, because after knight f6, e4, White does have complete control of the centre. Now the really amazing stuff starts to happen, I mean, there's all sorts of ways of playing this. This was Leela's attempt, and you see again it's willing to accept after d takes c6, bishop takes c6. You know, it's willing to accept this structure with a backward d pawn and a weak square on d5, simply to get some freedom. And funnily enough, in my game, Stockfish wasn't willing to give that. It played bc, bishop c3, bishop a6, knight d2 with a big space advantage. But yeah, you know, some sort of decent prospects for black. I mean, I've seen worse. You know, check Benoni's, and certainly the exchange of knights helps black. And you know, Leela managed to hold this one as black as well. But defense chess played a5, which is very natural. And now just this amazing moment that that I said 99.9% of strong players would tell you that what Leela played was an extraordinarily bad move. Leela played the move b5. Yeah, you know, an absolute beginner's move. Engines don't understand block positions. Those are the phrases that jump into your mind when you see it. I think that that you know, a3, which funnily enough was the move that Koivisto was always choosing, whereas Stockfish and Leela were always choosing b5. That would be the most the move that almost all strong players would play. Why is that? Well, it's simply a general rule of strategy that you know, you try and keep all your pawn breaks open for as long as possible. So when you play b5, it looks like you've abandoned the chance to play c4 to c5. Whereas if you play the move a3, keeping the pawn on b4, you keep that chance in reserve. And you know, moves like b5, extremely static. These are just supposed to be bad. I mean, you give up your chance of playing c6 to c4 to c5, and you also give away a square on c5 for the black knight. So what on earth could White's idea be? Well, funnily enough, in my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, I've got a chapter on entrenched pieces. And I start the chapter with a discussion of AlphaZero's very strong tendency to play b5 whenever black plays has a structure with the pawns on d6, c7 and b6, and plays a5. And there are many examples in AlphaZero's games where it sort of hammers a knight or a bishop in on the c6 or d5 outposts. And well, this was this thinking about all this was the reason why in a game I played against the English international master and Andrew Horton, after b6 I played b5, which is a tremendously unnatural move for me. But again, just trying to AlphaZero style to take control of the c6 square. And well, you can imagine my pride when I later played knight d4 into c6 as a pawn sacrifice, getting the two bishops. And then at a later stage, I got a bishop into c6. I got a bishop into d5. You know, all these things happened. I really managed to make use of those squares, and felt very fortunate that I'd seen those AlphaZero games. So I mean, that is a mannerism of AlphaZero, but of course you realise that I played that with my pawn on d2, so I still have the possibility to play the pawn to d4, and that could support c5, you know, and also chase a knight away from c5. Playing it with the d pawn already on d5, I mean, that's pretty way out. But why did I say that 99.9% of players would say this was a bad move? But who is the 0.1%? Well, take a look at this game, which is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Bhaskaran Adiban during a Chess24 internet game. This is a Mar del Plata b4, the bayonet variation, and after a5, Magnus played b5. Now, yeah, amazing move. I mean, Magnus is 700 elo points stronger than anyone else who's played this. and it looks absolutely appalling. But analyze this with Leela, and you actually see that although it's not Leela's top move, Leela manages to find an awful lot of interesting possibilities. In particular, the break c4 to c5 is happening very, very often, with the following idea. Obviously, I'll just show it here just so you can see. If b takes c5, then the pawn on a5 is very weak and also very hard to defend. If you play d takes c5, then the pawn on e5 is very weak. So, and yeah, Leela has plenty of other ideas in that position. So, yeah, I mean, we have then already seen this in one rare game, this idea. And I mean, what is the essential point about 14b5 in this specific position? I think what Leela's understood is that it has all the prospects on the king side, and it's much clearer in this line than in Carlsen's Mar del Plata concept. So keeping options on the queen side is actually just an unnecessary distraction if you really do understand that the king side situation is untenable for black in the long term. Playing b5 stops black from creating any counterplay with c6 or swapping off major pieces on the open a file. Yeah, I mean, if you just take an example with a3, just something a game between Stockfish and Koivisto, rather Koivisto and Stockfish. Well, you just see that although white is clearly better, with a rather nice space advantage there, black is compared to what happens in the game, black's got a lot better chances of defending. Because the open lines and open squares available to its pieces is just much, much more. So, yeah, b5, an amazing idea there. And well, talking about the c5 breaks, well, it's not just talk. Look what Leela came up with in some of our practice games. e5, bishop d2. I'll just whiz along a little bit more. Bishop c8. I was just giving both Stockfish and Leela and Koi as well, just all sorts of different move orders to try. Rook a1, knight h5, a4, g6, and now c5. And I've got so many diagrams here, so many places where this happened. And the great idea is b takes c5, queen b3. We play bishop f6, and then look at that. The knight just comes round to c4, takes on a5, and we've got a huge passed a pawn coming in. Yeah, amazing, really amazing. It's just this move 14b5 is not stopping the c5 break. That's one of the amazing things that you really wouldn't realize, but well, you do realize once you've seen Leela playing. So b5 played, e5, bishop d2, and knight d7. And yeah, I mean, again, Koivisto is a very, very strong engine, but you again saw something of the difference between the way that Leela and Stockfish defended this position and the way that Koivisto and DefenceChess defended. I mean, essentially, from the very first moment, both Stockfish and Leela were trying to create play on the king side. They were not just allowing white to expand there or to get the c5 break in or whatever. They were fighting back immediately, and yeah, I mean this really made a huge difference. I can give you a few nice examples. So there's a game here: bishop c1 played, bishop c8, a4. Knight h5, queen d1, bishop g4. So this was there was a whole series of lines like this where either Leela or Stockfish just went for a very static approach to the position. So knight d7, knight c5, bishop f6, takes, and then Leela just sat and held this position and decided that that this was drawable, and indeed it was, because Stockfish tried for 255 moves and didn't break through. Another example of this very static defense is bishop d2, bishop c8, rook e1, knight h5, a4, and now not the move g6 but the move g5. Wow, look at that one. h3, f6, queen b3, king h8, knight h2, queen e8, queen g6, g4, bishop d7, h4, locking everything up, and yeah, you know, again just leading to a draw. It's or even just give you another example, just to, you know, I mean, it's amazing really, because I mean there's all sorts of different ways of doing it, but it's always, you know, just looking for this extremely solid and static position. So king h1, bishop f6, knight g1, rook e8, and then h4 from Stockfish. And actually this position occurred, I think, maybe 4 times maybe in my games, and Leela drew it every single time. So swapping off the light squared bishops, playing queen e7, nice and careful not to allow the exchange of the knight for the dark squared bishop, and then at some stage Stockfish playing h5, g5, and the whole position is locked again, and Leela held for 190 moves. So there's a lot of structures like that, simply where oh wow, what game was that? I think that was Roth playing against Zahak, I think. So could be that Roth is winning there. But yeah, they were managing to find, you know, amongst this rather grim and desperate defensive task, managing to find some static structures, you know, and not only that, in actual fact, they also found some crazy ones. So, for example, we get bishop d2, bishop c8, rook e1, knight h5. That was my favourite move. h3. That was a choice of Leela's a number of times. And then look what Stockfish does. f4, sacrificing a pawn. f3, very nice. If bishop takes f3, then g6 wins a piece. Bishop h1, g6, rook f7, king h2, queen d7, hitting h3, g4, queen d8. King g3, bishop d7, bishop c1, g5. You know, just a total free-for-all, really. You know, trying to, yeah, sort of tempting white into to grabbing a pawn with its queen, then trying to trap it. You know, it's. But I mean, really, the idea that I'm trying to get across is that you know, both Stockfish and Leela were really at every stage trying to create counterplay. Whereas, because I think they understood very, very quickly how dangerous the black position was. Whereas you see with defense chess seems to sleepwalk a little bit into just a completely passive position. And well, I mean, you know, I think this difference in insight is reflected in the scores of the matches, because my match between Stockfish and Koivisto 7, so not the latest version of Koivisto, but the latest one that's downloadable on the web, was just on various positions taken from the Leela-DefenceChess. It was run on my machine with 94 threads. So yeah, I mean, enough processing power there. But Stockfish won 19, drew 18, and lost just 1, which is absolutely amazing. You compare it to the results on some other hardware. That was Stockfish against Leela. So Stockfish playing with 18 threads, Leela on an RTX 2080 Super. But it was 7-7 with how many draws is that? Something like 14, 15, maybe more. Just parity in that match, and I think that really shows the difference between those top engines and the slightly lower ones. You don't see it that much in equal looking positions, but when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and for the moment that's Stockfish and Leela. So e5, bishop d2 played by Leela, knight d7, king h1, knight c5, and knight g1. And this is a very simple plan from white, simply to expand with f4, gain the space, and it's quite hard for black to do anything. Of course, Leela and Stockfish tried. I mean, the move they were playing was bishop c8, bishop e3, g5, for example, rook e1, g4. f4, bishop f6, setting up a very unusual pawn structure there. But simply trying to stop the white pieces from getting involved. h3, h5, and Stockfish managed to hold this one with some very good defensive play again. But you see, really taking extraordinary measures there. So defense chess played bishop f6, bishop e3, g6, rook a1 from Leela. And here bishop c8 from defense chess, and now another move that I have to say shocked me completely. Somehow, the chat was not as shocked by it as me, which makes me feel a bit ashamed. But I was completely flabbergasted by it. The next move was bishop takes c5. Giving up the two bishops, giving up your control of the dark squares. What on earth is this? But Leela's idea was incredibly simple. Just b takes c5. It just played rook e3. And the unbelievably crude plan is that white is just going to grab this pawn on a5, just attack it with rook a3 and queen c3. And there's actually very little that black can do about it. Now, it's quite interesting that Stockfish also liked bishop c5, but it was looking for this sort of thing, just some huge central expansion. E5, knight f3, rook e1, swap off the queens, and then e6, easy as you like. Obviously, this pawn on a4 is always going to be a bit of a target for the knight. Just won this very, very easily. So, that's another approach. But Leela just played rook e3, went after the pawn. And to my horror and shock, it turned out to be very, very powerful. Now, the one thing is in this position that, again, you put Leela and Stockfish in this position as black, and they are going for it. This is Leela, for example, g5, f4, g4, h5, in we go. Just really trying to create play and causing problems for white. Here Stockfish managed to win this one. There's a number of games with counterplay on the king side, even at a slightly later stage, that Stockfish managed to hold on my hardware. But somehow defense chess just doesn't quite get that, and plays quite passively, I suppose, on the queen side. In all fairness, I do have to say that I thought that this might be something of a difficult win for Leela, because black's pieces are very well entrenched, first of all, on the queenside dark squares. You've got this a pawn that your rook and queen has to defend, and we've got moves like queen b4, maybe invading a little bit, maybe causing white some problems. But this was a very impressive thing from Leela, that from now on it was absolute complete control with a lovely series of mini plans. So h4 was played, king h2, and then bishop h3. So a lovely move as well, doing it with the king, so you can take back with the king and not move the knight offside, but keep the knight, in order to come either to e2, c3, or f3, and then d2, b3, something like that. And the nice idea is it's just a very simple idea. Either you exchange off the light squared bishops, and then black's just left with a horrific dark squared bishop, or black plays bishop e8, and the bishop on d7 is, the light square bishop is extremely passive. So takes, queen b2, lovely, covering d2, bishop h6, king g2, there is no rush, knight e2, A little nudge from the rook, knocking the bishop off its attacking square. King f1, just to stop the queen coming into e1. King f8, queen c3, of course, swapping off the queens. f4. Now we go knight c1, and we're going to remove the rook from there. a5, not even bothering about the h-pawn, because the b-pawn will be coming through, or the a-pawn. A little bit of protection, and then we just carry on again. You know, it's just such a smooth way of playing, and eventually the well, you know, the king comes in, supports, and then a pawn break, and it's all finished for black. Completely hopeless. I mean, that is an absolutely beautiful game, you know. But there are, I think, a number of wonderful points of strategy, which, you know, I don't think you'd see these half as clearly in, you know, even in a classic human game. It really is beautiful. I thought, first of all, the decision about you know, to play d4 to d5 on move 9. Really understanding that, you know, okay, this knight can get active, black can achieve something he might want just by swapping off a knight that was on the side, but then understanding that, okay, you know, what have you achieved? Have you really achieved something concrete, something permanent, in which you have a permanent foothold for your knight? No, you don't, because really you have to retreat, and then I gain full control of the centre. So, okay, you swapped off a piece, but look at what I've achieved as well. No, that's a very good piece of judgment. But then this is an absolutely amazing judgment. It's really maximalist. You know, I was sort of, I would have said beforehand, you know, that a3 is the move that's trying for everything, and that b5 is a bit dull and static. But it's the other way round. I mean, it's really white deciding here that the kingside situation is so promising that you've got to close up the queen side so that black can't create any counterplay there. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether. I mean, you know, thinking about that game against Andrew Horton that I described earlier, took me about 20 minutes during the game to really. I knew the idea. I'd seen the AlphaZero games, but to convince myself, come on, Matthew, you can do this. Yeah, you're convinced about this, and you know, obviously, once I did it, I felt very happy, and I had a very good game there. But yeah, I mean, it's really you know, a very deep concept. But I think, you know, a couple of things that you realise afterwards, you know, in particular. The possibility to play c4 to c5 anyway, in order to weaken black's structure, and also the idea that swapping a bishop off for this knight can be extremely strong. You know, the isolation of this a pawn, and of course just the general plan of just moving this knight, playing king h1, knight g1, f4, expanding on the king side on the centre, just being incredibly strong. You know, I mean, it's yeah. Really, really amazing, and then, you know, the other thing that was just interesting, just from an engine point of view, was you know, to see the difference between, you know, the two super engines. Of course, Komodo is another one, and you know, the slightly, you say, the second tier of engines. Just yeah, you don't see it in normal positions, but in these sort of really tricky positions, I think you know, Leela and Stockfish really come into their own there. So there we are. I mean, I hope you enjoyed that game. I think it's one of the most instructive and amazing strategic games that I've seen in the past year. And I can tell you, I've been watching TCEC a lot. I've seen a lot of very good games. You know, so really beautiful game. Yeah, I mean, if you like this video, then please give me a like, subscribe. Why not? Then you'll get to hear about all of the new analysis that's coming on this channel. Also take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which has got masses of stuff like this. You know, if you enjoy this analysis, I'm sure you'll enjoy the book, and also learn a lot about how to train with engines as well. But otherwise, you know, thanks very much indeed for watching, and hopefully see you with the next video.